Good morning everyone, and welcome. I'm Erica Trina, your host from Sen Securities. It's great to see so many market participants here today, from seasoned traders to those who are newer to the world of Forex. We're all here for the same reason, to learn more about how major geopolitical events can shake up the financial markets, and there's no better example of that than the Brexit referendum in 2016. This was a turning point for the UK, the European Union, and, of course, global markets, particularly the Forex market, which experienced significant volatility as a result of this historic vote. Today, we're going to walk through the referendum itself, the lead up to it, the immediate aftermath, and the ripple effects it had on global markets, with a special focus on the world of foreign exchange trading. The Brexit referendum was held on June 23, 2016, when the people of the United Kingdom were asked whether they wanted to remain a part of the European Union or leave. This wasn't just a small local event but a decision that carried enormous implications for global economics, trade, and politics. It's important to understand that Brexit didn't come out of nowhere. It had been building up for decades, with rising skepticism in the UK about the country's membership in the EU. Many people were unhappy with the influence the EU had over British laws, regulations, and, crucially, immigration. The UK had always had a somewhat cautious relationship with the EU, and the idea of leaving the Union had been simmering under the surface for years. When Prime Minister David Cameron announced the referendum, it wasn't a sudden decision, but rather a response to growing pressure within his own Conservative Party and from the populist UK Independence Party, UKIP, which campaigned hard for Britain to leave the EU. Many within these groups felt that the UK was losing control of its sovereignty and that it should have more say over its own laws, especially concerning trade and immigration policies. There was also a belief that the EU's bureaucracy was stifling the UK's ability to innovate and compete globally. Cameron believed that holding the referendum would settle the debate once and for all and strengthen the UK's position within the EU by securing public support for membership. However, what happened next was anything but predictable. The campaign was incredibly divisive, with two main sides, those who wanted to remain in the EU and those who wanted to leave. The Leave campaign focused heavily on the idea of taking back control. They argued that leaving the EU would allow the UK to regain control over its borders, laws, and economic policies. Immigration was a major issue in the debate, especially with the UK being part of the EU's free movement policy, which allowed citizens from other EU countries to live and work in the UK without restrictions. The Leave campaign painted this as something that was putting strain on public services and depressing wages for British workers. On the other side, the Remain campaign warned about the economic risks of leaving the EU. They argued that being part of the world's largest single market was crucial for the UK's economy and that leaving would result in uncertainty, loss of trade opportunities, and economic downturns. For the Remain camp, the EU represented economic stability, access to a massive market, and stronger political ties with neighbouring countries. They also raised concerns about the impact on the financial markets, which, as we'll see, was a valid concern. The vote itself was very close. When the results came in, 51.9% of voters chose to leave the EU, while 48.1% voted to remain. The outcome shocked many, particularly in the financial markets. The UK, for decades, had been a central part of the European economic and political fabric, and now it was choosing to step away from it. What followed was a period of intense market volatility, and those of you who were trading Forex at the time will probably remember just how wild the markets got in the days and weeks after the vote. One of the most immediate impacts of the referendum was on the British pound. On June 24, the day after the vote, the pound plunged by more than 10% against the US dollar. It was the pound's largest one-day drop since the 1980s. For Forex traders, this kind of movement was both an opportunity and a risk. Those who had positioned themselves correctly ahead of the vote could have made substantial profits, but for others, the rapid decline of the pound wiped out positions. The devaluation of the pound was largely driven by uncertainty about what Brexit would actually mean for the UK economy, as no country had ever left the EU before, and the process for doing so was unclear. This plunge in the pound wasn't just a short-term reaction, either. In the weeks and months following the vote, the pound remained under pressure, and it took years before it began to recover from the post-referendum shock. For traders in the forex market, this created a lot of volatility, which, as we know, can be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, high volatility provides opportunities for significant profits, especially for those who trade on leverage. On the other hand, it also increases the risk of large losses, particularly for those caught on the wrong side of a sudden market movement. Outside of the UK, the impact of Brexit was felt in global markets. Stock markets around the world tumbled in the immediate aftermath of the vote as investors sought safer assets. Safe haven currencies like the US dollar and the Japanese yen strengthened as a result, as traders moved away from riskier assets. Gold also saw a spike in demand, as it often does during times of financial uncertainty. For those trading forex, this meant not only focusing on the pound but also paying attention to movements in the yen, the Swiss franc, and other safe haven currencies, which saw increased activity as investors sought shelter from the storm. The volatility wasn't limited to just the immediate aftermath of the vote, either. Over the next several years, as the UK negotiated its exit from the EU, markets continued to react to every piece of news regarding Brexit. Every time there was a new development in the Brexit talks, whether it was positive or negative, there would be movements in the currency markets. Uncertainty about the future trade relationship between the UK and the EU made it difficult for traders to predict where things would head next, and this kept volatility high. This ongoing uncertainty created numerous trading opportunities, but it also required traders to stay on their toes, as any sudden announcement could send the pound, and other related currencies, into a tailspin. Of course, Brexit wasn't just a UK or EU issue, it had global implications. For forex traders, one of the key areas of focus was how Brexit would affect global trade relationships. The UK had been a major player in the EU's economic system, and its exit meant that it would need to renegotiate trade deals not only with the EU but also with countries around the world. This raised questions about the future of global trade, particularly for industries that relied on the UK as a key link in their supply chains. The uncertainty surrounding these trade negotiations added another layer of complexity to the forex market. For instance, any news about potential disruptions to trade between the UK and the EU, or between the UK and major trading partners like the United States and China, could move the markets. Traders needed to stay up to date on these developments, as the impact of a new trade deal, or the lack of one, could be felt immediately in the currency pairs involving the pound. As we look back at the referendum and its aftermath, it's clear that Brexit was a defining moment for the forex market. For traders, it was a case study in how political events can have far-reaching consequences on global markets. The lesson here is that while we can't always predict the outcome of political events, we can be prepared for the volatility they create. For those who were trading during Brexit, the wild swings in the pound and other currencies were a reminder of just how important it is to stay informed and be ready to act quickly in response to market-moving news. Even today, the impact of Brexit continues to be felt in global markets. While the UK has now formally left the EU and signed new trade agreements, the full economic and geopolitical effects of Brexit are still playing out. For forex traders, the pound remains a currency to watch, especially as the UK navigates its new relationship with the EU and the rest of the world. The market opportunities created by Brexit may have shifted over time, but they are far from over. So, as we continue to monitor the forex markets and stay attuned to global events, remember the lessons of Brexit. Political decisions can reshape the financial landscape in ways that are sometimes predictable, but more often, they catch us by surprise. The key is to remain flexible, stay informed, and be ready to seize opportunities when they arise. Thank you for your time today, and I hope this deep dive into the Brexit referendum and its impacts on the Forex market has given you valuable insights for your future trading strategies. On behalf of Sen Securities, I'm Erica Trina. Thank you.